Okay. Hi, readers. So today we are going to be reading our second chapter from Frog and Toad Are Friends by Arnold Lobel. Our chapter today is called The Story. All right, let's get started. The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, you are looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I am a frog." "Today you look very green, even for a frog," said Toad. "Get into my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, "Tell me a story while I am resting." Maybe you're listening to this story while you're resting. "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. "I will go out on the front porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me to think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. So we've got Toad. He's trying so hard to think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "Oh, I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Do you think standing on your head would help you think of a good story? All your ideas would just go to your head. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Toad is being so silly. What else might he do to help him think of a story? He's already walked back and forth. He stood on his head, and now he's pouring water on his head? What a silly frog. Nope, Toad, sorry. What a silly Toad. You're already thinking of some ways that Toad is trying to think of a story? Oh no. Okay, let's see what he does. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" asked Frog. "Well, I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me think of a story," said Toad. I am feeling much better now, Toad," said Frog. "I do not think I need a story any more." "Oh, then you get out of bed and let me get into it," said Toad, "'cause now I feel terrible." Frog said, "Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad?" "Yes," said Toad, "if you know one." Why is a Toad feeling bad now? Why do you think now Toad doesn't feel well? Well, do you think he felt it made him feel very good when he stood on his head? Nah. How do you think it made him feel when he splashed water in his face? Or especially this one. That seems like it would hurt. So first Frog wasn't feeling well, but now Toad's not feeling well because he was trying so hard to think of a story. But now it's Frog's turn to tell a story. Let's hear what his story sounds like. "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. The story's sounding kind of familiar, isn't it? So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. How was that? Sorry, let me try that part again. How was that, Toad? Said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. So what was Frog's story? Yeah, he just told the story about what just happened. Frog just told a small moment story about the time his friend Toad tried so hard to tell a story. Oh, what a good friend. Okay, so we know we have to do something at the end of the book. I'm going to go back to my favorite part. What was your favorite part? I like the part where he stood on his head. I think he's very silly. Okay, our next chapter will be one of my favorites, A Lost Button. So, I'm excited to read with you again. Bye, readers.